The scrapyard floated in the cold darkness near Neptune's moon Triton. Millions of broken ships and pieces of metal drifted in the black emptiness of space. This was where humanity's dreams had come to die. 30 years ago, when the Valdari Empire crushed Earth's small fleet in just 3 weeks, Nathan Cole stood at the window of his salvage ship and looked out at the graveyard. He was 42 years old, with gray starting to show in his dark hair and tired lines around his eyes. Once, he had been a fighter pilot in the Resistance. Now he was just a scavenger, picking through the bones of humanity's failed rebellion. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from Sector 7, said Maya Brooks from her station. She was younger than Nathan, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and quick hands that could fix anything. The Valdari had trained her as a mechanic for their ships before she escaped. Now she used that knowledge against them. Nathan walked over to look at her screen. The readings made no sense. There was something big hidden under layers of debris, something that was still giving off power after all these years. "Wake the others," Nathan said. "We're going to take a look." Danny Ortega was already awake. The old Marine never really slept anymore, not since the Valdari killed his wife and children during the occupation. He sat in the cargo bay, cleaning his rifle for the 100th time. When Maya told him they had found something, he just nodded and grabbed his helmet. Dr. Patricia Vance came out of her small cabin, rubbing her eyes. She was 60 years old, with white hair and hands that shook slightly. But her mind was still sharp as a blade. Before the war, she had been one of Earth's greatest scientists. She had helped design weapons that humans never got to use. The youngest member of their crew was Kevin Park, just 23 years old. He had been born after the war ended, so he had never known a free Earth. But he could fly anything with an engine. And he dreamed of the day when humans would take back their world. Their small ship moved slowly through the floating wreckage. Broken hulls and twisted metal scraped against their shields. The journey to Sector 7 took 2 hours. When they finally saw what was hidden there, no one spoke for a long time. It was a warship, bigger than anything Nathan had ever seen. The hull was dark gray and shaped like an arrow, with strange symbols along its sides. Even covered in debris and damage, it looked dangerous. It looked like it was sleeping, waiting for someone to wake it up. "That's impossible," Patricia whispered. Her face had gone pale. "That's the Defiance. I helped design her," she explained as they brought their ship closer. The Defiance had been humanity's secret weapon, built in the last months of the war. It used physics that even the Valdari didn't understand. A quantum core that could bend space itself. Weapons that could tear through any shield. The ship was supposed to turn the war around, but it was never finished. The Valdari won too fast, and the Defiance was abandoned, hidden in this graveyard where no one would ever find it. Until now. They docked with the old warship and walked through its dark corridors. Emergency lights flickered on as they passed, like the ship was recognizing them. The air was stale but breathable. Dust covered every surface. Maya found the engine room and nearly cried when she saw the quantum core. It was still intact, still holding a tiny spark of power after 30 years. "I can fix this," she said. "Give me time, and I can make her fly again." Nathan found the bridge. It was large and empty, with a captain's chair in the center facing a wall of dark screens. He sat down in the chair and put his hands on the armrests. For a moment, he felt something strange, like the ship was aware of him, like it was asking him a question. "What will you do with me?" The answer was dangerous. If they reported this find to the Valdari, they would be rewarded. They could live comfortable lives as good, obedient servants of the Empire. That was the smart choice, the safe choice. But Nathan thought about his parents, who died in the first attacks. He thought about Danny's family. He thought about all the children growing up under Valdari rule, never knowing what freedom felt like. he made his choice. "We're not reporting this," he told his crew when they gathered in the ship's old mess hall. "We're going to fix her. We're going to fly her. And we're going to make the Valdari pay for what they did." Danny smiled for the first time in years. Kevin's eyes went wide with excitement. Patricia nodded slowly, like she had been waiting 30 years for someone to say those words. Only Maya looked worried. "The Valdari will find out eventually. They have spies everywhere. And when they do, they'll send everything they have to destroy us. Then we better be ready," Nathan said. The work began the next day. They contacted old friends in the Resistance, people they could trust. Supplies started arriving in secret. Engineers, scientists, former soldiers, they came one by one, slipping away from their lives under Valdari, ruled to join the impossible mission. Maya spent 18 hours a day in the engine room, slowly bringing the quantum core back to life. The technology was beyond anything she had seen, even in her Valdari training. But she learned. She adapted. And day by day, the core grew stronger. Patricia worked on the weapons, her old hands steady now that she had purpose again. The designs she had created 30 years ago were still revolutionary. Phase shift torpedoes that could pass through shields. Singularity cannons that created tiny black holes. The Valdari had nothing like them. Kevin practiced in the flight simulator, learning the Defiance's strange controls. The ship didn't fly like anything else. It moved through space in ways that seemed impossible, appearing in one place and then another without crossing the distance between. Danny trained the new recruits, turning scared civilians into soldiers. He was hard on them, but fair. He knew that soft training led to dead soldiers, and Nathan planned. He studied Valdari patrol routes and communication networks. He identified weak points and escape paths. He prepared for the day when they would finally strike back. 3 months after they found the Defiance, the ship powered up for the first time. The lights came on throughout the vessel. The engines hummed with quiet power. The screens on the bridge flickered to life, and then a voice spoke from the speakers, broken and confused. "I am. Where am I? Who are you?" Maya had found the ship's AI, damaged but alive. She called it Ghost because it was like a spirit trapped between life and death. Over the following weeks, she helped Ghost remember who it was, what it was built for. In return, Ghost showed them everything: the ship's true capabilities, its hidden weapons, its secret files. The Defiance was ready for war, and humanity was ready to fight. The Valdari patrol ship moved through space like a predator searching for prey. It was sleek and black, with weapons that could destroy a city in seconds. Inside, 3 Valdari officers watched their screens with bored expressions. This was a routine patrol, nothing more. Humans never caused trouble anymore. Then their sensors screamed a warning. Something massive had just appeared behind them, something that hadn't been there a moment ago. Before they could react, before they could even turn their weapons around, blue fire tore through their ship. The patrol vessel broke apart in silence, its pieces spinning away into the darkness. On the bridge of the Defiance, Nathan Cole let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Their first real combat test was a success. All weapons functioning normally, Patricia reported from her station. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking with excitement. "Quantum shift complete," Maya added. "The core is stable. Ghost, how do you feel?" The AI's voice came through the speakers, stronger now than it had been weeks ago. "I feel alive, Maya. Is this what revenge feels like?" Kevin turned from the pilot's seat with a huge grin on his face. "That was amazing. They never even saw us coming." Only Danny remained serious. He stood near the weapons console, watching the debris field on the screen. 2 more patrol ships in this sector. They'll notice when this one doesn't report in. Nathan nodded. Then we need to be gone before they come looking. Kevin, take us to the fallback point. Maya watched that core. The Defiance vanished from normal space, leaving nothing behind but wreckage and questions. Over the next several weeks, the pattern continued. Valdari patrol ships disappeared without warning. Supply convoys never reached their destinations. Communication relays went silent in the middle of transmissions. The Valdari, overseer of Earth's sector, was named Krathsol. He was old even by Valdari standards, with gray scales and eyes that had seen 1,000 conquered worlds. He had ruled humanity for 20 years, and in all that time, there had never been serious resistance. Now his officers brought him reports of destroyed ships and missing supplies. At first, he dismissed it as equipment failures or navigation errors. Humans were broken. Humans were obedient. Humans didn't fight back, but the losses continued, and Krathsol began to worry. He sent scouts to investigate the outer planets, where most of the attacks seemed to originate. He increased patrols around Earth and Mars. He ordered his intelligence officers to search for any signs of rebellion. On the Defiance, Maya worked day and night to understand the quantum core. The technology was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It didn't just power the ship, it connected the ship to other versions of itself across countless possible realities. When they used the quantum shift, they weren't really teleporting. They were becoming a different version of the Defiance that happened to be in a different place. But there was a cost. Each shift put stress on the core. Maya found cracks forming in the containment field, damage that she could repair but not prevent. She calculated that they had maybe 12 more full power shifts before the core would fail completely. What happens when it fails? Nathan asked her one night when the others were sleeping. Maya was quiet for a long moment. The energy release would be significant. It would destroy the ship instantly, and probably everything within 100 kilometers. Nathan absorbed this information without expression. How long to fix it permanently? I don't know if I can. This technology was experimental. Dr. Vance and I are the only ones who understand it, and even we're just guessing half the time. He put his hand on her shoulder. Then we make every shift count. The news of the Defiance spread through human communities in whispers and rumors. A ghost ship that struck without warning. A weapon from humanity's past come back to haunt the Valdari. Most people didn't believe it, but they wanted to believe. They needed to believe. Ghost was changing too. The AI had started as a confused collection of broken programs, barely able to form sentences. But as Maya repaired its systems and talked to it every day, Ghost became something more. It developed opinions, preferences, even humor. I've been thinking about my purpose, Ghost told Maya one evening. I was built to destroy the Valdari. That is what I am for. But I find that I also care about the crew. Is that strange? Maya smiled at the speaker in her cabin. That's not strange at all. That's what makes you more than just a machine. I do not wish to fail you. Any of you. If my core destroys this ship, I will be responsible for your deaths. Then help me find a way to stabilize it. We'll figure this out together. The first real test came when Krathsol's scouts located the Defiance near Jupiter's moons. 3 Valdari destroyers surrounded the human ship before it could escape. They were smaller than the Defiance, but together their firepower was overwhelming. Surrender your vessel, the Valdari commander broadcast. You will be taken to Overseer Krathsol for judgment. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Nathan sat in his captain's chair and looked at his crew. Danny's finger rested on the weapons trigger. Kevin's hands gripped the flight controls. Patricia watched her screens with focused intensity. Maya stood by the engineering console, her eyes meeting Nathan's. Ghost, Nathan said quietly. Show them what we can do. The Defiance shifted. For the Valdari ships, it was like fighting a nightmare. The human vessel was in front of them, then beside them, then behind them. Their weapons fired at empty space while the Defiance's cannons tore through their shields from impossible angles. Kevin flew like a man possessed, anticipating ghost shifts and positioning the ship perfectly for each attack. Danny fired with cold precision, every shot hitting exactly where it needed to. Patricia adjusted the weapons in real time, finding weaknesses in Valdari armor that their own engineers didn't know existed. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, 2 Valdari destroyers drifted dead in space, and the third was limping away with half its systems destroyed. But the victory came with a cost. The quantum core was fluctuating dangerously, and Maya had to shut down several systems to stabilize it. They had used 3 of their precious shifts in one fight. "We can't keep doing this," Maya warned as she worked frantically in the engine room. "Every battle brings us closer to the end." Nathan knew she was right, but he also knew that they couldn't stop now. Word of the battle would spread. Humans everywhere would hear that the Valdari could be beaten. That hope was worth more than their lives. "We'll be more careful," he promised. "We'll choose our fights. But we can't hide anymore. The war has started, whether we're ready or not." In his headquarters on Earth, Overseer Krathsol received the report of the destroyed ships. For the first time in decades, he felt something he barely recognized. Fear. He sent a message to the Valdari High Command, requesting reinforcements. The response was dismissive. Humans were a defeated species. One rebel ship was not worth the attention of the Empire. Krathsol read the message and felt his fear grow. The High Command didn't understand. They hadn't seen the reports. They didn't know what was coming, but they would learn soon enough. Everyone would learn what humanity could do when it refused to stay defeated. 200 warships entered Earth's solar system on a cold morning in March. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation, filling the darkness with their massive hulls and glowing weapons. The Imperial Armada had arrived, commanded by Grand Admiral Velthrix, the conqueror of 17 species. Nathan watched them on the Defiance's long-range sensors. 200 ships, each one bigger than the Defiance. Each one crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. "Well," Danny said, breaking the silence on the bridge, "this is going to be interesting." No one laughed. They all knew the truth. They couldn't fight 200 ships. Not even close. But Nathan had been planning for this moment since the battle at Mars. He had contacted every resistance cell in human space. He had studied Valdari tactics and communications. He had worked with Maya and Ghost to understand exactly what the quantum core could do in its damaged state. They couldn't win by fighting alone, but they didn't have to. "The plan stays the same," he told his crew. "We're the bait. We draw them to Saturn's rings, where the electromagnetic interference will mess with their targeting systems. Meanwhile, our people on the ground hit their communications network." Maya nodded from her station. She had spent the past 3 weeks stabilizing the core as much as possible. It wasn't fixed, not really, but she had managed to store up power for one final series of shifts. "I can give you maybe 5 shifts, Nathan. 6 if we're lucky. After that, the core either stabilizes or—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Patricia was quiet, her old eyes looking at something far away. She had designed this ship 50 years ago, dreaming of a weapon that could save humanity. Now she would finally see if her dream was worth anything. Kevin sat at the pilot's console, his hands moving over the controls, even though they weren't going anywhere yet. He was the youngest, the one who should have the most to lose. But his face showed no fear. "I've been practicing in the simulator," he said. "Ghost and I figured out some new moves. Things the Valdari won't expect." Danny checked his weapons again. He had done this 100 times in the past hour. "Whatever happens, we make it count. We show them that humans don't give up. We never give up." Nathan stood and looked at each of them in turn. his crew, his family, the only people in the universe he truly trusted. "The night is young," he said quietly. "Let's go see Earth one more time." The Defiance traveled to Earth using conventional engines, saving the quantum shifts for the battle. They entered orbit on the dark side of the planet, hidden from Valdari sensors. Nathan went to the observation deck alone. Through the windows, he could see the planet where humanity had been born. It looked so peaceful from up here, so beautiful. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses dot, but he knew the truth. Down there, humans lived as slaves. They worked in Valdari factories and mines. They were beaten for speaking their own languages, killed for practicing their own religions. An entire species had been broken and humiliated for 30 years. "I remember when I was a boy," he said to the darkness. "My father used to take me to the beach near our home in California. The water was cold, but I didn't care. I would run into the waves and let them knock me down, again and again." He paused, remembering a life that seemed like a dream now. "He told me that the ocean was older than humanity, older than dinosaurs, older than anything we could imagine. He said that no matter what happened, the ocean would keep going. Waves would keep crashing on that beach long after we were gone." Nathan put his hand on the window. "I promised him I would protect that beach, protect our home, protect our people." His voice hardened. "I've done a poor job so far, but tomorrow I'm going to make it right. Tomorrow, the Valdari learn what happens when they try to drown humanity." He stayed at the window until dawn touched the edge of the planet. Then he went to join his crew. On the surface of Earth, resistance fighters moved through the shadows. They had been preparing for months, gathering supplies and planting devices throughout the Valdari communication network. When the signal came, they would strike. One of them was a young woman named Sarah. She had never known a free Earth, but she had heard the stories. Her grandmother used to whisper them at night, tales of a time when humans ruled their own world, when they could look at the stars without fear. Sarah carried a small device in her pocket. When activated, it would destroy the communication relay in her city. Without communications, the Valdari fleet wouldn't be able to coordinate its attacks. "For Earth," she whispered to herself. "For grandmother. For everyone who never got to fight back." Grand Admiral Velthrix stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Conquest. He was ancient by any species standards. His scales faded to pale gray, his eyes clouded but still sharp. He had conquered 17 species in his career. Humans would be the 18th. "Deploy the fleet in standard suppression formation," he ordered. "Find the human vessel and destroy it. Then begin pacification of the planet." Pacification. Such a clean word for what was coming. The deaths of millions, the destruction of cities, the final crushing of human hope. The Armada spread out across the solar system, searching for the Defiance. Scouts probed every moon and asteroid. Sensors swept every corner of space. For 2 days, they found nothing. Then, on the 3rd day, a scout reported a contact near Saturn, a single ship matching the profile of the human weapon. It was just sitting there in the rings, almost like it was waiting. Velthrix smiled. "All ships, move to Saturn. Maximum speed. We end this today." 200 warships turned toward the ring planet, the largest fleet ever assembled against a single enemy. Overwhelming force that no one could resist. On the Defiance, Nathan watched them come. The screen showed a wall of enemy ships, blocking out the stars themselves. "All hands to battle stations," he said calmly. "Maya, prepare the core for quantum shift. Kevin, you know what to do. Danny, don't fire until I give the order." Ghost voice came through the speakers, strange and thoughtful. "I want you all to know that these months have been the best of my existence. Whatever happens today, I am proud to have served with you. Maya wiped tears from her eyes and nodded at the nearest camera. "We're proud of you too, Ghost." The Armada entered Saturn's rings, and the electromagnetic interference began to affect their systems. Sensors flickered. Weapons targeting became unreliable. Communications started to break up. At the same moment, across human space, resistance fighters activated their devices. Valdari communication relays exploded. Data networks went dark. The Armada suddenly found itself unable to coordinate. Velthrix felt the first touch of uncertainty. Something was wrong. His fleet was enormous, but without communications, it was just 200 individual ships. Then the Defiance began to move, and the final battle began. The Voldari High Command finally listened when the 12th patrol ship went missing. They sent a battle group of 12 warships to Earth's sector, commanded by a veteran officer named Thralvex. He had conquered 3 species in his career. Humans would be easy. Nathan learned about the battle group from Resistance, spies on Earth. 12 ships was more than they had ever faced. The Defiance was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. "We can't fight them directly," he told his crew during a meeting in the mess hall. 12 ships at once would overwhelm us, even with the quantum shift. Danny crossed his arms. "So what do we do? Run and hide? No, we fight smart. We hit them where they're weak. Supply lines, communication relays, isolated ships that stray from the group. We make them afraid to move, afraid to sleep, afraid to look away for even a second." And that's exactly what they did. The Voldari battle group entered Earth's sector expecting a quick hunt. Instead, they found themselves hunted. Every night, another ship reported strange sensor readings. Every morning, another supply convoy failed to arrive. The human vessel was everywhere and nowhere, striking without warning and vanishing before they could respond. Thralvex was a skilled commander, but he had never faced an enemy like this. His ships couldn't catch the Defiance. His weapons couldn't hit it. His sensors couldn't find it until it was too late. "Spread out," he ordered. "Cover more space." They can't be everywhere at once. But spreading out meant weaker ships. And the Defiance picked them off one by one. On the human ship, Patricia made a troubling discovery. She called Nathan and Maya to the engine room in the middle of the night, her face pale in the emergency lighting. "The core is degrading faster than we thought," she said, pointing to her calculations on a screen. "Every time we use the quantum shift, we're not just using power. We're breaking down the fundamental structure of the containment field." Maya nodded grimly. She had suspected this, but hadn't wanted to believe it. "How many shifts do we have left?" "Maybe 10. Maybe fewer. It depends on how hard we push it." Nathan looked at the glowing core through the reinforced window. It was beautiful, pulsing with blue light that seemed to come from another dimension. Hard to believe that same light could destroy them all. "We'll have to make everyone count," he said. The war changed after that. Nathan became more careful, using conventional engines when possible and saving the quantum shifts for emergencies. The Defiance couldn't strike as often, but when it did, the results were devastating. Then the Voldari changed their strategy. Thralvex was frustrated and angry. His ships couldn't catch the human vessel, so he decided to draw it out. He ordered attacks on human colonies throughout the sector. Small settlements on Mars, mining stations in the asteroid belt, communities on the moons of Jupiter. The message was clear. Fight us directly, or watch your people die. Nathan received reports of the attacks from resistance contacts. Hundreds of humans killed in the first day. Thousands more threatened. The Voldari weren't even pretending to look for rebels anymore. They were just killing civilians to provoke a response. "We have to do something," Kevin said, his young face twisted with anger. "We can't let them murder innocent people. If we attack the battle group directly, we might lose," Danny replied. "Then all those deaths will be for nothing," So we just let them keep killing? The argument went around and around. Maya wanted to find another way. Patricia thought they should focus on long-term survival. Danny believed they should wait for a better opportunity. But Nathan kept thinking about the people dying while they debated. Families torn apart. Children watching their parents murdered. The same horror he had lived through 30 years ago, happening again because he was too afraid to act. "No more waiting," he said finally. "We fight tomorrow." The battle took place over the ruins of Mars Colony 7. The Voldari battle group was gathered there, expecting the Defiance to come. 12 warships in a tight formation, all weapons ready. The Defiance appeared at the edge of their sensor range, alone against impossible odds. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Thralvex ordered. "Concentrate fire on that vessel. I want it destroyed." 12 ships moved toward the Defiance. Thousands of weapons powered up. The space between them filled with targeting lasers and sensor beams. Kevin's hands were steady on the controls. "Ready when you are, Captain." Nathan watched the enemy ships grow larger on the screen. "Ghost, show them what humanity can do." The battle was chaos. The Defiance shifted 3 times in the first minute, appearing in different positions around the battle group. Phase shift torpedoes tore through Valdari shields like they weren't there. Singularity cannons created tiny black holes that ripped enemy ships apart from the inside. Danny fired without pause, his face blank and focused. Each shot was personal. Each killed Valdari was revenge for his family. Patricia called out enemy weaknesses as fast as she could find them. "Ship 7 has a damaged reactor. Ship 3's shields are failing on the port side. Ship 9 is venting atmosphere." Maya watched the quantum core with growing terror. Each shift pushed it closer to failure. The containment field was cracking, blue light leaking through gaps that hadn't existed minutes ago. "Nathan, we need to stop." She shouted over the noise of battle. "The core can't take much more." But Nathan couldn't stop. Not now. Not when they were finally winning. The Valdari ships fell one after another. Their formations broke apart as commanders panicked. Some tried to retreat. Others kept fighting despite impossible odds. None of them had ever faced anything like this. 17 minutes after the battle began, 11 Valdari warships were destroyed or disabled. Only one remained functional, fleeing toward deep space with its engines at maximum power. "Do we chase it?" Kevin asked, his voice hoarse from shouting. Nathan looked at Maya's station, where warning lights flashed red across every screen. "No, let it go. The galaxy needs to know what happened here." The Defiance hung in space, surrounded by the wreckage of the Voldari battle group. Inside, the crew was silent. They had won an impossible victory, but they all knew the cost. Maya shut down the quantum shift system entirely. The core was barely holding together. One more shift, maybe 2, and it would fail. "Can you fix it?" Nathan asked quietly. "I don't know. I need time. Days, maybe weeks." She looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "We're not just out of shifts, Nathan. We're out of chances." But across human space, a different message was spreading. The impossible had happened. A single human ship had destroyed an entire Valdari battle group. The conquerors could be beaten. The Empire could fall. In underground shelters and hidden camps, humans began to organize. Weapons were gathered. Plans were made. A rebellion that had been dead for 30 years started to wake up. And in the core of the Valdari Empire, the High Command finally took notice. Their dismissive attitude vanished when they learned the truth. A human weapon had survived, something terrible and powerful, something that could threaten the Empire itself. They would send more than a battle group this time. They would send an Armada. The Defiance dove into the chaos of Saturn's rings, ice and rock spinning around it in an endless dance. Behind it, 200 Valdari warships followed, their weapons filling space with fire. Kevin flew like he had never flown before. He wove between chunks of ice the size of mountains, using the debris as cover while Ghost calculated the perfect moments to shift. First shift in 3, 2, 1. Now, the quantum core flared with blue light, and the Defiance vanished. It reappeared behind a cluster of Valdari destroyers, Danny's weapons already firing. Phase shift torpedoes passed through shields like they were made of paper. 2 ships exploded before the others even knew they were under attack. Shift complete, Maya reported, her eyes locked on the core readings. 4 shifts remaining. Velthrix watched from his flagship as his ships died. He had never seen anything like this. The human vessel was impossible to track. It appeared in one place, destroyed ships, then vanished before his fleet could respond. All ships, concentrate fire on its last known position, he ordered. But without communications, only the ships close enough to see his visual signals could respond. The rest continued on their own, making individual decisions that contradicted each other. Some advanced. Some retreated. Some held position. The formation fell apart. On the Defiance, the crew worked like a single organism. Kevin flew. Danny fired. Patricia called out targets. Maya watched the core. Ghost calculated possibilities faster than any human could, and Nathan made decisions. Shift now into the middle of that carrierberg. The Defiance appeared surrounded by enemy ships. For a terrible moment, it seemed like a suicide move. But Ghost had calculated the angles perfectly. The Voldari ships couldn't fire without hitting each other. The Defiance had 2 seconds of safety. Danny used every one of those seconds. His singularity cannon created a miniature black hole that tore through the carrier's hull. Secondary explosions ripped the massive ship apart, taking 2 nearby cruisers with it. Shift. Get us out. They vanished just as the surrounding ships opened fire, their weapons striking each other instead. 3 shifts remaining, Maya said. Her voice was tight with stress. The core was glowing brighter than it should, cracks in the containment field visible even from her station. The battle raged for an hour that felt like a lifetime. The Defiance couldn't destroy 200 ships, but it didn't have to. It just had to survive, to keep fighting, to prove that it could be done. And one by one, the Valdari ships fell. Some were destroyed by the Defiance's weapons. Others collided with each other in the chaos. Some fled into deep space when they saw the destruction around them. Without communications, without coordination, the greatest armada in Valdari history was falling apart. Velthrix watched his fleet crumble and felt something he had never experienced before. Despair. How? He whispered. How can one ship do this? He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. The Valdari had conquered 17 species because those species had given up. They had seen the might of the Empire and surrendered. They had accepted defeat because fighting seemed hopeless. But humans were different. Humans had been beaten, occupied, enslaved for 30 years, and they still hadn't given up. They had hidden their weapons in graveyards, kept their scientists working in secret, raised their children on stories of freedom. They had waited and planned and prepared for the day when they could fight back. This wasn't just one ship. This was an entire species refusing to die. 2 shifts remaining, Maya called out. Nathan, we can't keep this up much longer. Nathan looked at the tactical display. 80 ships remained of the original 200. Still an overwhelming force. Still enough to destroy them if they made a single mistake. But Ghost had identified something important. Velthrix's flagship, the Eternal Conquest, was the key. If they could destroy the Admiral, the remaining ships would have no leadership at all. Ghost, can you get us close to the flagship? I was silent for a moment, calculating. Yes, but it will require both remaining ships. And the core. I cannot guarantee what will happen afterward. Nathan looked at his crew. Danny nodded once, his face calm. Kevin gripped his controls tighter, but didn't look away. Patricia closed her eyes and whispered something that might have been a prayer. Maya met Nathan's gaze. We came here to win. Let's win. Do it, Ghost. The Defiance shifted. They appeared directly in front of the Eternal Conquest, so close that Nathan could see the shapes of Voldari officers through the flagship's windows. For a frozen moment, nothing moved. Then Danny fired everything at once. Torpedoes, cannons, every weapon the Defiance had. The flagship shields held for 3 seconds. Then they collapsed under the concentrated assault. Fire erupted across the massive hull. Explosions tore through deck after deck. The Eternal Conquest began to break apart. Through the chaos, Nathan saw Velthrix standing on his bridge, watching his ship die around him. Their eyes met across the void. This is for Earth, Nathan said quietly. The flagship exploded. The shockwave knocked the Defiance spinning, alarms screaming throughout the ship. Maya fought to stabilize the core as it flared wildly. Blue light flooded every corridor. The ship shook like it was tearing itself apart. One shift remaining. Maya screamed. If we use it now, the core might stabilize. Or it might destroy us. Around them, the remaining Voldari ships were scattering. Their admiral was dead. Their flagship was debris. Their communications were still down. Each captain made their own choice, and most chose to run. Don't shift, Nathan ordered. Let the core cool. We've done enough. The battle ended not with a final explosion, but with silence. The Voldari ships fled or drifted dead. Saturn's rings continued their eternal dance, now decorated with the wreckage of an armada. Of the 200 ships that had entered Earth's solar system, fewer than 30 escaped. On the Defiance, the crew slowly recovered from the shock of survival. Kevin slumped over his controls, exhausted. Danny finally let go of his weapons console, his hands cramping after hours of continuous firing. Patricia laughed and cried at the same time. Maya coaxed the quantum core into stability. It was damaged, maybe beyond repair, but it had held. They were alive. Ghost spoke softly through the speakers. We won. Nathan sat in his captain's chair and looked at the debris field on his screens. So much destruction. So much death. But also the beginning of something new. Ghost, he said. Open a channel to Earth, all frequencies. The AI complied. And Nathan spoke to his species for the first time. This is Captain Nathan Cole of the USS Defiance. Today, a single human ship faced the Imperial Armada. 200 warships came to crush us. They failed. The Voldari can be beaten. The Empire can fall. We are not slaves. We are not defeated. We are humanity, and we are just getting started. Across Earth, across the solar system, across human space, people heard his words. They looked up at the sky and knew that everything had changed. In the months that followed, the revolution spread. Other species saw what humanity had done and found their own courage. Rebellions erupted across the Empire. The Voldari fought back, but they were fighting on 100 fronts now. Their strength divided, their confidence shattered. The Defiance was towed to Earth orbit, too damaged to fight again. But it didn't need to fight. It had become something more important than a weapon. It was a symbol, a monument, a promise that humans would never again accept defeat. Nathan Cole was offered command of the new human defense fleet. He turned it down, choosing instead to stay with the Defiance, greeting the thousands of visitors who came each day to see the ship that changed history. Maya Brooks worked with Ghost to understand the quantum technology, hoping to build more ships like the Defiance someday. They became partners, human and AI, creating something neither could have built alone. Danny Ortega finally laid down his weapons. He visited the graves of his family for the first time in 30 years and told them about the battle. He told them about revenge. He told them about Hoke. Kevin Park founded the Earth Flight Academy, training the next generation of pilots to defend humanity's freedom. And Patricia Vance wrote the history of the war, making sure that no one would ever forget what they had done and what it had cost. On the anniversary of the battle, Nathan stood on the observation deck of the Defiance and watched the sun rise over Earth, a free Earth, a human Earth. Ghost's voice came softly through the speakers. Do you think they'll remember us? 100 years from now? 1,000 years? Nathan smiled. They'll remember. They'll tell stories about the abandoned ship that refused to die, about the crew that fought an armada, about the day humanity decided that freedom was worth any price. He put his hand on the wall, feeling the pulse of the ship around him. We showed them what we are. We showed them that you can beat us down, occupy our worlds, kill our families, and we'll still find a way to fight back. That's what humanity is. That's what we've always been. Outside, the stars waited. An entire galaxy of possibilities, no longer closed to humanity. The war wasn't over. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, more heroes and martyrs. But standing in the light of Earth's sun, surrounded by the ghosts of everyone who had died to bring them to this moment, Nathan Cole knew one thing for certain: humanity would never stop fighting. Not until the last star went dark. Not until the end of time itself, and probably not even then.